7 angels powered the artificial god until one day the second angel vanished. Obek's influence faded and the world began to fall apart. Hollow tunnels that stretch across the expanse of the world once carried coolant to Obek. These pipelines now a calcified labyrinth, dark and grey. By now, the hand has travelled deeper and deeper within this manufactured planet. From the humble beginnings of the magnetic garden through to the nest of wires, and even to the far reaches of the outer crust where the fungal Cytian organisms roam. Via these tunnels, it's assumed you could travel to many different areas on the map, much like the master pipe in Rust Town, but the importance of the calcium pipes aren't themselves, but what lies behind them. Striking a specific area on the pipeline a few times will reveal a hidden zone, aptly named the hideout. Prison of the innocent, the snake egg. A spherical bunker surrounded by long cords that coil about its reddish surroundings. The atmosphere is dense with polyps. Now, pole dot lips are a unicelled organism that had begun at some point long ago, infesting the oxygen supply of the world. Vessels eventually adapted to process this infested air and could breathe safely, but this clearly was a concern for those centuries ago. The small polyps sort of look like small little dust motes or little viral structures, incredibly tiny. The hand navigating this polyp-encrusted floor enters this hideout. Following a series of thin cables, it leads to 4 red-cloaked individuals sitting idly on the ground. These are the 4 snakes, and I believe that they are the ones who took the second angel. Upon approaching them, the hand notices that only one stirs, rising slowly to her feet, and an interesting distinction there with a bit of type of gender here, because gender isn't really used that much at all throughout the book. These are mostly just sort of vessels. And because there is another mention of a her when referring to a snake or a red cloak figure later on, I get the impression that this is sort of a parallel of, Eve and the snake from the Garden of Eden sort of being drawn here, but with the biblical roles kind of being combined, where they're one and the same. The third snake rises, and a long, deadly scythe extends out of its crimson robe. The hand must fight this skilled vessel in order to proceed. Should they defeat them, they are met with a huge metal door bearing the shape of an emaciated man with an empty rectangular slot in his chest. The hand will need the iron brick to open this door. Back to the outer crust, with its corrosive surroundings and sanguine landscape, the hand can find a red dome. Encircling it are Cytian life forms, all passive and non-violent, gathering around pools of liquid like animals at a watering hole. Inside the red dome sits Sage V2, who will trade items with you. Immediately, you can see a resemblance to human life within the Sage, and, thereabouts, which is extremely rare in Godhusk, if not exclusively reserved for divine beings, i.e. angels. Though their face is distorted, it's clear enough that it's a face all the same. Upon meeting them for the first time, the significance would be lost, but upon returning from the hideout, seeing that this vessel wears a red robe and sits within a spherical structure, we can connect them quite safely to the snakes. The iron brick that the hand requires, however, is not for sale or even available for purchase, unknown to the hand and players alike. Only violence would reveal the truth. Killing Sage V2 will earn you the Iron Brick, pried from its corpse, as well as an ANF unit, a storage device for memories. Leaving the dome, the hand is attacked by the once peaceful fungal organisms. Fighting or fleeing, the hand can then access the memory unit, which reads, "Progress is what we call this ever-growing curse upon our kin. We lost our flesh, then our thoughts, and now our souls are rotting away inside their shells. We stole divine beings and called it a gift from heaven. Centuries of evolution feasting upon our abominable acts. We must force the birth of a new era. The salvation of this world can only be achieved by redemption. Free the innocents. Death to Obek." This is a monumental amount of information and clearly shows that there was a grander fracture of ideologies and ethics, beliefs at some point centuries ago. Sage V2 gives us some important events in sort of a loose timeline here too. We lost our flesh, then our thoughts, and I think that at least the first part of that is quite literal. The destruction of basic human requirements for life, infested oxygen, no sun, the fact that food's barely even mentioned, this is speculation, but it feels as if the human form, the human body, was failing the people of Godhusk these centuries ago. Whether it was due to sickness, lack of inhabitable ecosystems or resources, or more simply a lack of endurance for whatever this new world is, whether it's one in space or a different place entirely. Flesh was failing, so vessels were made or introduced, transposing your consciousness into a vessel to live on. I can't completely confirm this, but that feels to be on the money, at least. I won't expand too much, but there is a vessel called Broadcaster who contains a huge stockpile of memories and rambles about them in this sort of garbled static. One line is said in ancient Latin, which when you translate it speaks of "Blessed is the fruit of your womb, pray for us," and it speaks of women and birth. So I'm actually curious if one of the main reasons potentially for vessels was also that birth, as in human reproduction, had stopped, or people were unable to for one reason or another. So to actually continue living and the species, they created vessels, and these vessels that we see in present day Godhusk are also sort of born as well. And that there's, like, in MO3's kind of, that NPC's character is about motherhood and birth, which is an interesting sort of quality or like personality trait for it to have or inherit. So we lost our flesh, then we lost our thoughts, and that I think is actually referring to praising a false god. That the faith that was established by or for Obek, and I feel like Obek is somehow an important aspect to the creation of vessels or transposing people's minds or powering the world. It is a very much a linchpin thing, more in the sense of like a mechanical requirement, I wonder, and then the faith was built around it. But I think that we lost our thoughts is referring to religious fanaticism that removed critical thought or critique, and then the people of Godhusk weren't questioning things as much, like, where 7 angels came from and why are they in pods. But that's just how it is. And it's clear that Sage V2 has also existed for a very long time, sustaining itself far beyond many other vessels who have decayed or replaced limbs, and have either, lost themselves physically or mentally. The character and design of Sage V2, I feel like, is based on the Buddhist monk Bodhidharma, who was popularized for being the alleged founder of Shaolin Kung Fu and fame for their patience and different styles of meditation. and is often depicted with a red robe. They taught the 2 entrances and the 4 practices. And so I was wondering if the 4 practices, much like the 4 snakes, and the 2 entrances being the 2 outcomes that primarily come from following the pathways that I have in this title of the video. The story of Bodhidharma also contains a lot of lessons that are also taught with sort of body mutilation, like removing eyelids, and a student, removing their arm to show sincerity. So these actions also kind of really strongly connect with a lot of the ethos of Godhusk, which is like body replacement and the body not really meaning as much anymore. It's more about what's inside the vessel. So, having killed Sage V2 and obtaining the iron brick, the hand returns and places it into the metal door within the hideout. The rusted metal door swings open. Beyond it, a prayer room filled with red robes lying on the ground. Further still, the hand finds an altar, defended by another snake who dies before being able to fulfill its role as protector. The altar in question holds the head of an angel vessel, either in reverence or spite. Either way, the protection relating to manpower and secrecy suggests that no one was meant to get here or to really find this angel head. The hand moves on until it reaches a towering figure, a behemoth of a vessel that contains the innocent. The second angel is kept inside this titan, as when it was removed from the pod, it became severely wounded and has been in a healing state within this titan ever since. It was placed inside to protect it, but also to stop those who would restore the old order. So the mission objective of the snakes is even clearer now. It's stop Obek and prevent its return and anything related to it, faith, God, practice, all of it. The title of innocent is interesting as well. Also is most likely referring to the snakes and the red robes' outlook on the angels. These beings that were taken and then used to power Obek. They're victims in someone else's design of, the kinfolk of Godhusk. So Sage V2 and the snakes attempting to free one of these angels, but inadvertently wounding it, may have resulted in them dedicating themselves to healing them and also protecting them and hiding them. You do battle with the Titan in 3 devastating phases, and upon its defeat, the innocent unfurls from its back in a cocoon, and its dragonfly-like wings open up and it begins to fly away. Normally it would fly away and you wouldn't be able to see it or interact with it again, though the things that have led you here have in part been violence, and violence can be used once again should you attack the innocent. The apostate now hovers before you, a single visible eye peering from within its cracked hull. And quick definition of what an apostate is a person who renounces a religious or political belief. Meaning that the innocent, the second angel, may have believed in this artificial god faith with Obek, or more likely, I'm curious, actually had information spread by the people of Godhusk, centuries ago, the very same who put it there, and that it is part of this religion and accepted faith. I feel as if its status and title as apostate more refers to how it itself was always opposed to Obek and its followers, not that it had once believed in them. The apostate attacks, and before it succumbs to its fatal wounds, having been bested, it leaves a message. Now, I cannot decipher this, and there isn't really a clear cipher present within the book that I can find. So if any of you have any thoughts or can decipher it, please go for it. I'd love to know what you figure out. As far as I can tell or surmise, these symbols going off, stores and things like that tend to be quite literal. So I'm thinking not so much letters in terms of a cipher, but more like depictions of what that word means, like hieroglyphs. Which is why, given the prior mention and a clear focus on birth and rebirth. I'm curious if the second symbol here may actually represent pregnancy, because it kind of looks like, a bipedal creature with a round belly. Again, not sure, but see what you can find. Continuing on, with the fallen angel now exposed in all its true humanesque glory, a true angel beyond that of vessels prior, like the head in the altar, the hand must now make a very important choice. Take the apostate and return it to its pod and finally restore the cycle, thus achieving the Wheelwright pathway, which is the title of someone who repairs wood wheels or things, so makes sense, restore a cycle. Or, if they are in possession and have not used Diopedes, the spear fallen from heaven, they may end the angel's life with mercy and usher in Epoch, a new beginning, the other pathway. The image for Epoch shows a corpse eroded, buried under rough red earth, and it's this Epoch pathway that I personally would suggest is the good ending of Godhusk. I personally feel that the Red Robes saw that new life had formed, had bested the overly extended immortal beings that they had artificially become, and that Scythian life should be embraced, nurtured, and ultimately take over. It seems to be the thing that can survive in the world that has become, or the world that they made. Sage V2 had accepted and welcomed them, and they had remained peaceful around him. So, by ending the second angel's life, there can be no rewriting of the wheel, and that a new age has to come to pass. Man, so that was a wild one. That was pretty. That felt like the main core pathways of what the game would be. The core of it really rests in those last few pages, but man, yeah, pretty crazy. I feel like I've probably missed a lot. I definitely have abbreviated things, such as I just looked into actually the INF units, those memory things, and oh my god, I really want to do a video on that, because there's like 3 pages only in the whole book that kind of have these like fractured images of them, but I think, yeah, anyway. Thanks for tuning in so much. Thank you so much for the kind words and support. That's awesome. If you like it and you want to see more, yeah, I guess just let people know. I think it's just cool. It's an awesome book. Just let other people who you reckon would like Godhusk or like lore videos or things like that. Yeah, just share it and say, yeah, check it out. See if you like it. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. And I've been Haunted Picnic. So until next time.